Yeah, in this video, I'm going to talk about Golang Champion, a specific topic. And today, I will talk more about unit testing and the mocking. So, in a Golang, for the testing, this goconvey and another one is testify. These are very popular uh, library here. But if you see like here, this has goconvey has 8,000 likes and a star, and here in the testify it's a 22. So I have already been used this goconvey in many of my projects, so I feel easy to use this goconvey. And for the mocking, I was using a different library for with goconvey, but that library had some issues. So then I started using mocking from the testify. So I'm going to show you the combination of this both goconvey and testify. Let's see a little bit about the goconvey, how they are using the test here and the testify, and then we'll see the code for the mocking. So for the example here, you can see they are checking like this, and that's a small test you can go through and you can understand this. There is a UI also. So if I hit the http localhost 8080, we can see all the tests in a UI. So you can try this. If you see the testify, testify, the test they are testing in this way. They cert equal, not equal. So you can check this basic stuff from this site here. Let's see the project where I have used this unit testing and the mocking, and we'll get idea. And we can use this direct in a production code also. So here is a project. There is a unit test example I have prepared. So let's understand this project, and then after that I will focus on the unit testing. So in this project, if I run this, go run, it is in CMD. So it returned the ID 2 and one name, and there is some salary. So this is just one line it returned. Let's understand what it's doing. So if you see the directory structure, there is a CMD unit test and there is a main go here. And in a main go, we are calling one repo, and then we are calling one service, and then we are calling a function list increase salary employee above threshold. So this returns the employee detail which salary is greater than 2000, and that's a simple example. And then here I'm just printing that. Let's see the structure. In a model DTO, there is an employee DTO, and here I put ID, name, salary, and this function will print this info. And the repo, so repo is usually for database stuff, and here in a repo I have created one interface. There is a employee info here, and this employee info, this returns the 3 record from here. So just think this we get this from database. So I have not done actual database connection, but just assume we get this data from database. Okay, that's the employee info, and this structure is very common in a Golang, and I have explained a lot about this in many projects. So one of the project you can also watch that in a Golang for Kids series, and there you can find the project where I have talked about this file structure. If I go to the service Go, employee service, there is employee service, one struct, and there are two functions inside this, and that's what I'm going to test. One is increased salary, and when I call this function, I pass some salary and then percent, and it will return the increased salary. And this function list, this is it will get all the employee info from the database. You can see the repo, so get all the employee list, and then we pass that salary of each employee, and we increase the salary by 10%. And here we are checking if increased salary is greater than max amount. There is some threshold like 2000, it's greater than 2000, then only add that in another list here, and eventually we return that list. So that's what we are doing here. So if you see in a database, we have 3 employees here, and their salaries are 1000, 2000 and 1500, and then we increase the salary by 10%, and we are checking here the person whose salary is greater than 2000 return that, and that's why we got the data here, id 2, and this 2000 here, 2200 with tax. It's not a tax, but like incremented salary. Okay, so it's a 2200 and it returns that. Now we are supposed to test this two function. So this function is very easy to test. Easy to write the unit test. There is no dependency here, but there is a challenge in this function. There is a dependency. We want to check every code here, but there is a dependency in this line. This says employee info, repo employee info. We get employee info from database, and we do not want to connect to database when we run the unit test. So that's the place where we need the mocking here. So in the mocking, when we use the mocking, then what happens here, we can call this function, and we can mention there, like whenever this function will get called, then do not actually call this function, just bypass this function, and instead return some data here, the desired data, whatever I want, the desired data return here, and then based on that we can test other lines here. So that's what I'm going to do. So here for this functionality, I use testify mock and also goconvey. So I'm using the combination of both testify and goconvey, and this one is very easy to test. So let's see the test for this. So let's see for this one easy test here. So if I go for service test, then let's see this function. So in this function, maybe I do not need this line here, so I'll talk about this later. Just put it here. So in this test, we have imported here goconvey. Mock is not required in this place. Okay, we have goconvey here. That's the library, and in this convey we are saying test employee service because we are testing employee service, and this is the structure that's always we follow. At the top we put this, and then under that we write actual test. And in this convey, and in this line, if you see here, there is just difference of t here, and there is no t. So this is we can say that's a one group. Under this there are test, and we need to have this kind of bracket, so that's we need to get familiar with that. Here I'm calling increase salary 100 and the 10. So if I increase the salary by 10%, then my expectation is 110. And if this is correct, if this function returns that, then good. I'm testing convey, so increase salary convey should equal expectation, whatever the expectation is, and it will run. So I can test. This is a Golang is a, you can use 30-day trial version, but after that we have to pay. I think it's a yearly one, something around 150 or something. You can check online that. So if you have the Golang, I can we can use or test this from here. So just right click and then run test. Undefined EMP service. Okay, at least this service. Okay, so I think it's good. We need to put that because at least we need this here. Okay. Okay, that pass. Or other way, you can run to the terminal. You can say go test -v pass. You can see all the detail. Success testing, increase salary. So that's about the easy one. Now we are going to test the function that depends on our database. So before testing that, we know in this database we have a function employee info. So for this function we need to mock this function. We need to bypass this, and here we want to get return the value whatever we need. So in order to mock this, if you see in the same place I have created a repo mock. So I'll go to the repo mock, and then I will import testify mock. I will create my own struct, and under this I put the mock here. And then for this struct, I need exactly the same function in the repo whatever we are using. So in the repo we use the employee info. So this function, and this is the return type. So in the repo mock, I put the same function. See here, return type is same, but the internal logic is not same. So internally there is a database connection. We have some logic over there for DB connection. So we are just bypassing that. We are not writing the textual code, but here I'm just saying return args get 0, and here just return only one value here. That's a list. So that's type should match, and here we just say args get 0. If sometime if you want to return the error also, so in the case of 2 parameter error, we have to give args error 1, comma, after comma we can put this args error 1. But here we just have only one output, that is a list, and we're returning only one argument here. So we are good here. So we created this mock first. Now we'll come back to service test, and in this test, when we create the service, we need this mock object, because let's see in a main when we create the service, actually we need the database connection actually, and then only we will be able to create the service and call the function. So let's understand in this main, and we'll come back there. So in order to call this function, I need a service, and the service I need a database object, and this is the actual database object, repo object, repo new. And if I call this will connect to the database if I have the code for that. So just assume, okay, it will connect to the database and repo object, and we pass this repo object here. The similar way, in these two lines I'm using in my test, but here I'm not using actual database connection, but instead I'm like saying new and use the repo test. This repo test is in a repo mockgo. This one I created and I associated the function here. So this struct I will use here, and in this way we got emp repo, and this emp repo is not an actual database connection but test repo, and just pass this. Okay, we are good there, and we use this here. And emp service we are calling, list increase salary. We call this function passing the max threshold 2000, and this function is depend on the database, and this function depends on database of this one, employee info. Come back. So when I call this function, I'm giving instruction when I call this function, and in this function, if the employee info function is called, so bypass that and return this data. So in this data, Chris, John, but you see in an actual database it's returning Hari, Sam, Ram. And in a repo mock, not a repo mock, in a test we bypass that employee on. When this function will get called inside this function, then bypass that and return my own data, 100, 200, this one, this two record return. So we'll get in a emp list, we'll get this record because we already bypassed, and in a emp list we pass this threshold, and we got the emp list, and we are checking the length is emp list too. So in this way, and at the end we need to call this one assert exception. So in this way we'll be able to test with the help of mocking, and this kind of dependency we can bypass. Let's run it and debug this a little bit here. So I'll just set my debug point in this place and right click, I run test. Okay, now I'm in this line. If I go to this function, inside this function, so let's write debug test. Might work incorrectly, that's fine. Okay, I'll click on next, or I want to go inside this, so just go inside and it puts the debugger point here, because we know the control will come here, and go to the next. So we come here. So we are testing this function, and we come here, and when we go to the next step, now see the emp list. So the emp list value is 2, and inside this, if you see, that's our data, Chris 2000 and 200, John 3000. So this data we see here. So that means, the repo employee info, it's not getting the data from the database, we just bypass that. Okay, and then we'll again come back to this and make another debug point here. Next line, we come here and we'll see in the emp list exactly 2 data. So That's nice. So that means here, we call this listen list increase salary emp above threshold, this function, we call this function, and inside this function there is a database call and this function call, and we bypass this and we modified the data, and then later based on that we run the logic, and then we can test that. So, and this will work. Test pass. Yeah, so that's all about this unit testing. Thank you.